Mandy-Marie, give us just like a 30-second introduction, and then let's jump right into 3 things that we can do to help stem that self-sabotage.
Okay. Well, I have been a life coach for 10 years, and really my mess became my message. In 2010, I asked a question that changed everything, and it was, what if the depression I'm fighting could be figured out? What if there's an answer? And so that led me to figuring out an answer, and it led me to becoming a life coach to give people hope. Specifically, I worked with a lot of women to give them hope if they're dealing with mental illness, and then it's just branched out into parenting and overwhelm and just kind of anything that anybody is going through to help them understand where their brain might be sabotaging their efforts.
I love that. And that is so important as far as, especially for leading, because sometimes we'll do things and we don't know why we're doing them, right? So, like, we'll avoid tasks or avoid people or not deal with situations, or we'll deal with them in old ways that we know aren't working. And we don't understand why things are coming out of our mouths or why we keep doing what we're doing or foraging in the fridge because we're like stressed. Just these old tapes and old stories that kind of keep circulating in our minds. So, let's talk about that today. How do we navigate this chatter, these old patterns or old ways or kind of knee-jerk responses and reactions to things? What can we do to figure out what those are and how to deal with them?
Well, we have a really strong social program, and that says that if I have chatter going on in my head and I'm thinking negative things or I'm feeling negative things, that I am bad and I shouldn't feel that. So if I'm having chatter going on in my head, I should do everything I can to push it away, and I should think positive. And that social program really creates a lot of self-sabotage. So what I like to help people figure out is the message behind the chatter, behind feeling negative or down or blue. Like, there's always a message. And when we understand the message, then we can reprogram our brains through neuroplasticity to really be able to create the results that we want in our lives.
Absolutely. And I think that, there's such a place for having that positivity and absolutely, this wonderful view of half, the cup is half full. And there is absolutely a place for that. I'm like a eternal optimist. I just did Studio 5 on the optimist playbook, right? But what you're talking about is acknowledging that negative and being able to do something about it. And whether it's an action or whether it's a being at peace with it or embracing it or whatever it might be. But it's what I'm hearing you say is acknowledge and value that feeling and that negativity or that worry or fear or whatever that is, it might be teaching you something. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. And actually, I have an example I can share if you'd like that. With one of my clients, this just happened 3 weeks ago, and I've been working with her for quite a while. So she was really practicing the skills that we've worked on. And this one particular moment in time, she was really experiencing a lot of frustration with her kids. Like, they were just responding just at high levels of just irritation and frustration. And she told me, she says, it's not normal to me to just like lash out and just be really angry back at them. And it's not her nature to do that. But she felt herself and heard herself doing that and responding that way. And she was like, what in the heck is going on? Like, I don't want to be this way, but I am like at a breaking point. Like, I can't handle it anymore. She's like, I need help to figure this out. Like, what's going on? And then she started to do like the 3 tips that I'm going to share with you today, to really like, what is the message behind why I am acting the way I'm acting towards my children? And she told me, she was like, oh my gosh, I had the biggest breakthrough. She said, what my brain was telling me is that I am a bad mom because my children are struggling. And that, I was like, that is so beautiful to have that understanding, because then you can say, well, is it true that I'm a bad mom because my children are struggling? And is it really going to be the best thing for me to keep my children out of pain? No, they need pain, and they need the skills to move through that pain. So I believe, and I've seen this over and over and over, you change a mom, you change a woman, she changes a generation.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that is my goal. Like that, I love to help a woman step into her truth and her power, because then she is equipped to help her children learn the same skills. And heaven knows that the children need to know this just as much as the moms do. But it has to start with the moms. It has to start with the adult. It has to start with the aunts or the grandmas.
Absolutely. And that modeling, right? So that they actually see it in action. Oh my gosh, I just had an experience with this with my 11-year-old. So I had mentioned a couple weeks ago, like I did the ultimate mom no is as far as an 11-year-old sports loving kid. It's that I forgot to sign him up for basketball. Now, here in my defense, like over all the years and all the sports and all the practice things, 98% of the time I have gotten all the equipment, I've gotten him on time, I've gotten him his snack, his water bottle, I've done all the things, right?
Yeah.
And I actually was so on it that I called early. I called too early, and they said, no, you're too early for the sign up, you're gonna have to call back. Well, what did my brain say? My brain said, that's done because you called. So I'm just going along thinking I've totally signed him up. You guys, I was dying when I realized all of his friends are playing basketball and he's not. Like, I was sobbing I was that mom. I was sobbing at the counter of the rec office and like, is there anything we can do? Can I bring brownies to some coach? I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, I've never done that before because I knew what this meant to him. Okay, so we moved through it and all the things, but here's the thing. This was 3-4 weeks ago, and he handled it like a champ, but he still is so sad about it and so mad about it, right? But he's been really cool about it. Well, last night we were talking and something else came up about it, and I said, Bud, how are you feeling about that? Have you moved through it yet? And he goes, Mom, I'm still mad and I'm still so sad. And I said, I am too. And then we were just kind of cuddling together on my bed, and then he just started to cry. And I said, Bud, just let it come. Just let it come. Just let it come out, because this is a sad, hard thing. And it was my fault. And I said, I own this. I completely own it. And I'm so sorry. I feel the same way. Anyway, long story short, ladies, it was the most tender, sweetest moment. My little side lamps are on. I'm just holding him. I'm just kind of next to him and holding him. And I'm just kind of going like this on his face. It's going to tear me up because he was crying. And he really did. I could feel, he just cried through it and got it out. And then I could feel the softness. And then he was just kind of sitting there and he said, can I look up Legos? He said, that's a coping skill, Mom. I gotta look up Legos. And I said, that sounds great, bud. Go ahead and look up Legos on my phone. It was the sweetest thing. But this permission that I gave him and me for me to say, yeah, I'm so sad and I'm so mad at myself and I'm grieving it as well. And you can grieve it too. And we can just sit in it together. Man, we just sat with it. And it was so good. And then we could move on. So anyway, we are gonna jump to these 3 tips and tools that you have today, but kind of setting the setting right now. This stuff matters. That just like you said, Mandy-Marie, as we model this as moms, as we say, you know what, that's all I could do. I didn't run around and try to make it any better than I could have tried at the beginning. And I didn't try to make it all better for him right now. I just said, yeah, that really stinks. He used a different word, but that sucks. But he was like, that stinks. And I'm like, that does stink. And we just sat with it. So what I'm saying is this stuff really does matter for us as moms and modeling for our kids. Okay, so let's jump into this. Ladies, have this in mind. That chatter, that doubt, that thing that's that block for you, that obstacle in leading either personally or professionally in the home or at the workplace, wherever it might be. And then let's apply what Mandy-Marie's going to share with us. Go ahead, hit us with the first tool.
Okay, well, I have to say that is such a beautiful example of facing and feeling what you were going through, and you gave your son permission to do that. He's going to go back to that. That probably changed his trajectory in so many things, because he just grabbed a belief and formed a belief about himself, about God, and about the world from that little experience. So when he encounters opposition like this or other opposition, he's going to remember, oh, it's okay for me to face it and to feel it. I can cry, I can be mad, it's okay. And then I'm going to come out on the other side. And that is so incredibly empowering. I wish everybody knew how to do that, because we all have opposition. It is not about doing something so we don't have opposition. That's like beating ourselves against a brick wall, saying, if I beat myself enough, the brick wall is going to fall. No, it's not, right? So we all have opposition. And knowing how to move through that opposition, that is where the empowerment comes. And that's what I love to help women to step into, because it's inside every single one of us to do this. We usually just need a guide to do that.
Exactly. And I think that's knowing those tools, and then, oh, now's the time to apply them. So important to have those two pieces. So give us this first tool. When that starts to happen, what's the first thing that's helpful?
Okay, so the chatter's going on, and you just stop and take a deep breath. And what that does is it quiets the amygdala, which is the fight or flight response inside the brain. So it just gives notice to your amygdala, oh, somebody else is in charge. Not the emotion, not the thought, but you yourself as a human being, you're in charge. So number one, take a deep breath. Then number two, you're going to ask yourself, what is my brain saying? So you get really clear on the messages. So a lot of times we have 5 million messages going on, right? And most of them are very negative, and it's very negative self-talk. Okay, we're going to call it out. Oh, my brain is telling me I'm a failure because my child resents their upbringing. Oh, number three, is it true? Is it true that I'm a failure because my child resents their upbringing? Is it true I'm a failure because I forgot to sign my son up for basketball? Is it true that I'm a failure because my friend just said something irritating about me on social media? Is that really true? So it's that curiosity that starts it plants a seed that all of a sudden you've told your brain, there's going to be a new person in charge here, and it's going to be me. I'm going to figure this out. I'm no longer a victim to the thoughts inside my head or to my feelings. I'm not a victim to them. They have a message. They have something to teach me, and I'm going to use that to rewire my brain so I step into truth. And the more that we step into truth, the more our spirits are heard, and the more we are instruments for God.
I so agree with that. And in fact, when you said we use it, I love this thread that you put in of opposition. I think sometimes, especially as women, we go preventative mode. I know I do. Just trying to prevent struggles and stress. Why? Because we deal with the fallout. We're like, I only have so much energy and so much bandwidth, so I'm just going to prevent like people forgetting stuff and his band instrument being out and all the things, right? So we do preventative kind of all day long. But there's a place for this opposition, and there's a place for this negativity and the feelings, for, like you said, for it to teach us, and then we can use it. Okay, I'm going to use a Taylor Swift example, which kind of sounds funny, but I remember watching her talking about in some interview, and she was talking about how people were giving her like grief about that they had this image of her that she was jet setting, and she was just like living this high life and like dating all these guys, and she was just like she was just throwing money out the window kind of thing. She was like, like I was taking baths in marble baths and dripping in pearls, like is what she said. And it was so ridiculous. She's like, I was at home chilling out, like, hanging with my fam. Anyway, she said, but instead of getting mad about it, I was so impressed. She said, I thought, I think I can use this. And she said, I wrote a song, and that's where she wrote Blank Space. And she just made fun of this image, this caricature that people were making of her, and made millions. Like, she really has it down on how to deal with people who are giving her grief, because she just makes it a really hit song and makes millions from it. But I love this idea that it's all about how do we use it. So let's go back and let's apply each of these steps and give a little additional tool. So On the breathing, I'm inviting everyone on here. If there's something, a fear, an obstacle, an avoidance, a situation, a mindset, a belief, something that's stopping you from moving forward, take that, hold on to that, and then let's breathe through it. So I know this may seem a little weird, but let's do 3 deep breaths. Is that all right? Let's do 3 deep breaths just to reset our mind. So let's do it. Breathe in, hold for 4, and then breathe out. I like to breathe out for 8. So 4 by 4 breathing, but actually 8. All right. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. And keep that thought in your mind of like, I'm going to breathe through this, whatever it is. Breathe in, hold, and breathe out. And if you want, you can even push the breath through your teeth as you breathe out. Ready? Breathe in. Last time. Breathe in. Okay, now we're in this breathing space. And now Mandy-Marie has mentioned, find out what your brain is saying. So if you have something to write on, or if you're driving and listening, just think it in your mind. But what is your brain saying? And Mandy-Marie, I want you to think of an experience that you or a client you've had of what that brain is saying. You gave one about that woman with her children. And if there's another one that comes to mind, I know for myself, sometimes when I go to speak, I've been speaking for 30 years, but I will go to speak and I will be like, I have nothing of value to say. There's nothing Shazammy in what I'm saying. There's nothing, I haven't lost a limb and had to cut it off with my switchblade knife. I don't have something Shazammy to say. And I remember I was going to speak for this one audience, and I just felt this like, I don't have anything of value to say, and I don't even know how they're going to respond to it. So I stood and I did my thing, and I just found out yesterday somebody was making a comment about that very speaking engagement and said we were all wrapped in attention. And when you said, is this resonating with anyone? We were all like, yes. And is there more? I did not know, because most of the audience was sitting just like this. That's it. There was nothing. And it was making me feel like I don't even know. So again, what is your brain saying? And then kind of look at that and write it down and identify what that sentence is, what that feeling it is it's giving you, whatever. Mandy-Marie, any other thoughts on that, on what your brain is saying?
Yeah, say it out loud instead of just in your head, right? Because our voices, all of this needs to come out of our vocal cords. So to say it out loud, oh, my brain right now is telling me that if I don't get everything done on my list today, then I'm just a failure. Or I'm really dumb because I didn't get it done. Or I mismanaged my time because I didn't get it done. And therefore, I may as well just give up. So those are some examples.
That is such a powerful tip and tool, because I'm just thinking to myself right now, if I would have said out loud, I have nothing of value to share with this audience, immediately myself would have kicked in and said, that's not true. That is not true. I know these things work, right? I would have already fought back against that. I love that tip of say it out loud. So when you're having something like that, try that, and try it, maybe even saying it in the mirror, looking in the mirror and saying that to yourself, because now you become an actual person and you're saying it to yourself, because we don't get to see ourselves, right? Except for when we're looking in the mirror. So I love that tip and tool. So, so good. Say it out loud. Any other thoughts on that?
A lot of times people think, well, if I say it out loud, then I'm going to give it more energy, whatever. That's not what I found. It's actually the opposite. You say it out loud and it starts to lose its power. As long as it's bouncing around in our heads, it has all sorts of power. And Bruce Lipton teaches 95% of our daily results comes from our subconscious programming. And that's what's going on in our head, right? So does it have power, what's going on in our head? You bet it does. It's driving 95% of our daily results. So when we speak it, then all of a sudden we're saying to our subconscious minds, oh, look, I'm in charge. I recognize what's going on in my life. I'm not scared of it. I don't have to have any fear about it, because I know that I'm going to figure this out.
Oh my gosh. And that naturally takes us to that next one. Is it true?
Mhm.
Right? Because
Mhm.
once you identify what that actual driver, what I call the red thread, you know, the Minotaur story, fable, whatever, is that red thread. What is that red thread that goes through those thoughts? A lot of times, once we can identify that, then we can apply that. Is this true or is it not? And then we can just eliminate it or we can resolve it. So I love that. Do you have an example where someone you worked with or yourself where you said, is that true? And I just want to give a nod to that experience that you had about overcoming depression, because depression, now I want to really be clear, there's the clinical aspect of that. And so please don't take that you're just going to think happy thoughts and everything's going to be just fine, right? There's a lot that goes to that, but it has to involve the mindset. And I love that you asked yourself that powerful question, what if I overcome this? What if I can overcome this? Then it won't just be my lot in life. I'll actually have a life. And that's exactly what happened. You found the modalities for mind, body, soul, and then you started teaching it to other women so they could do the same thing and not just be stuck with something, but be able to live the life like you're living right now. So I want to make that clear. But when I think about, is it true? You know, is that true? And I think about that, you know, the two sides you do, is it true? Like what's the evidences and things like that, all those things. But is it true? I think about times in my life just recently where I've personally and professionally been afraid or nervous about something or had a fear about something. And then, for example, oh no, if I don't have certain people involved in what I'm doing, then I won't be successful. And then finding out that no, I can set healthy boundaries, or I can do what I know is the right thing. And that opens the space for healthier situations, healthier people, healthier whatever. And I've also seen it personally with sometimes, like you brought up with our kids, I think as moms, we feel like, well, if I don't show my love by giving them everything that I can possibly give them and helping them in every possible way, then I'm not a good mom. And I just had that experience where my soul was saying, you've got to set some boundaries. They've got to fly in this certain way. And the other side was like, but if I do that, I won't be like a loving mom. But I had to give myself permission to see if that was true and then go, oh, we've shifted gears. I'm not doing it the old way anymore because we don't need to. They've gotten older, things are different. And now I have permission to shift the gear, and that still makes me a loving mom. So what you're talking about is super powerful. Do you have any experience with clients that you've worked with that have done that same thing when they've said, is it true?
Yeah. Actually, just this last week when I was meeting with a teenage girl, and she she just basically gave testimony of this because she's been practicing it for a long time. She's like, I cannot believe how powerful it is to understand the message behind everything that comes through my brain. And one of her biggest things, and she said, please tell everybody this because it's so powerful, but she came to realize that one of the subconscious programs inside of her was that it was her responsibility to fix people and to make sure that all of her friends were happy, and that if she wasn't doing that, that she was not lovable or good enough. And so that programming has been driving her for several years, and she has had some tough friend stuff in junior high and high school, really tough stuff. And as she has practiced these three skills that specifically that I've just given you, and like to really get good at asking, what's the message behind what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, she is stepping into a whole different space where she can let go of the toxic friends, because that's what she was dealing with, was very toxic friends. But her brain kept telling her, no, you got to stay on and you got to try to help things figure out, and you got to change them. You got to make them want to change. I said, that's not your job. And what is it costing you to do this? And she had a whole list. I mean, she knew immediately what it was costing her to believe that. And so now as she is stepping into this space of, okay, I'm feeling this way, I'm thinking this way, what is going on? What's the real message? And is it true? She is becoming so empowered to face and feel whatever she's going through in the moment and move through it. It's so incredibly empowering, and it's simple. I mean, I gave you 3 steps, and people would be like, yeah, right. How can that help? you practice it over and over and over, and you start to create new pathways in your brain, and all of a sudden you become a better version of yourself.
My goodness, it is so true. And I love that this can work personally and professionally.
Yes.
So look at that
Yes.
situation. And if you're working with someone on a community council or a church council or whatever that might be, and you feel a certain way or have a message that's come into your mind, you can write that down. You can look at it and say, is it true? And then if you say to yourself, I think it is true, then I love that additional point that you brought up. What is it costing you to believe that that's true? Because then you'll really get to the truth of the truth. You'll really see if it is actually true or if it's just a truth you've held on to as a belief. Yeah. And if it is true, then you don't mind the cost because you know that it really is true, that you know that this is going to help. Like, for instance, one of my kids that, you know, adulting things and things like that. Yeah. It was so hard to hold that line. I could feel what shift I needed to make, and it was so hard, and kind of feeling judged or whatever, you know, just the different responses back or whatever. But then within a couple of weeks, being able to have her respond back and say, I am learning X, Y, and Z, and go, oh my gosh, the learning is happening. Yeah. And it wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have handled it that way, right? Even though it came at a cost. Yes. The cost was justified, and it felt peaceful because I knew this was the right thing, and ultimately it would have that outcome, or it could have that positive outcome. So it does help us to stand in that space with a lot more peace and clarity, knowing it is true, and so I can move forward on it, whatever, you know, come what may and love it kind of a thing, whatever opposition may fall down the track. This has been so helpful. Go ahead.
Can I say one? I'm glad that you brought that up. I didn't know if we would have a chance to really get into that. Like, so if it is really true, then you get to decide, how am I going to show up with this? So let's say that you're overwhelmed, you have a list this long, and there are certain things you have to do at certain points in the day. Like, that is true, that is solid. Okay, how are you going to show up if it has to wiggle a little bit and you're late for a really important meeting? Like, how are you going to respond to it? That's really number 4. If you find out, yeah, it is really true, you get to decide how you show up. And that is just as powerful as realizing that there's a lie going on in your head and that you don't want to believe that lie anymore. So sometimes the things we hear in our head are true, and we need to acknowledge that and be okay with saying, okay, how do I want to respond to it?
So good. I love that. How do I want to respond? Not react, but respond. And how do I want to show up personally and professionally? Yes. I love this. And I know that you help women do this, and you have right now, you have this freebie that you're giving out to women, a free call with you. Yes. Is that right?
Yes.
Where can women find out how to sign up for a free call to work through one of these sort of chatter issues and work through that with you? How can they do that?
CoachMandy-Marie.com, and they can book a discovery call. It's right there. Or if you want to do a kickstart call for 2024 to help create a new story of how you want to respond to opposition and what you want to create this year, then you can go to CoachMandy-Marie.com/kickstart.
Oh, love, love, love. And that's Mandy-Marie as in MANDY-MARI.
No dash.
But no dash. Yeah. That's the way you spell your name. No dash on the website.
Right.
Love Coach Mandy-Marie, and it will pop up when you just start looking it up. I hope that the women will take advantage of this, because free call, and it's really just to help you move forward. And this is her gift back this January. I'm so excited. Mandy-Marie, thank you so much for joining us today with these mindset tools. And I invite you ladies, apply it today. Just try it. One experience, one thought that comes to your mind, just apply it. Breathe. What's your brain saying? Write down or identify it in some way, and then say, is it true? And then decide how you want to show up. All right. Thanks so much. And join us next Wednesday for another fabulous Leadership Live.